6 o'clock. Are we ready? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, today is Wednesday, March 25th. It is 6 p.m. This is the Olentangy Local Schools Board of Education. This is a special meeting with a single purpose, and that is to interview and select search firms for the superintendent search that we're about to undertake. With that, I will call the meeting to order. Please, Mr. Kern, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Bartz?
Here.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. White will not be here.
I have not heard from Mr. White. I'm assuming he will not be joining us.
Mr. O'Brien?
I'm here. Everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the agenda? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes. Okay, so we've got two presentations by the two firms. Again, as a recap, we invited 7 firms to propose. 5 actually submitted proposals, which we, at our last work session, narrowed to 2. And so we have the 2 finalists tonight. We've submitted to the finalists a set of roughly 7 questions that we'd like each firm to answer. We've allotted each firm roughly 30 minutes. I've put in about a 15-minute cushion in between, so we'll have the second firm in at 6:45. So with that, I'd invite up Kathy Lasota and Cheryl Ryan from Ohio School Boards Association.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Board of Education members.
Good evening.
On behalf of OSBA, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our executive search process to you. We're very proud of our process, and Cheryl and I are here to answer all of your questions and provide any more information that you might need from us this evening. We know we need to address the 7 questions. We've also prepared a paper PowerPoint presentation for any time that's left at the end for you to ask questions. We refer to that to perhaps spur those questions on. But with your permission, I'll get right to the questions that you want answered. The first question is what other superintendent searches are you currently involved in, and how might those searches affect your work with this district? And that question's easily answered by telling you that this is a really busy season for OSBA. We currently have 5 searches that we are actively involved in. Those searches are in various stages of the process. A few of them are just starting up, several of them are closing, and we do have 3 full-time consultants and a part-time consultant who are facilitating those searches right now. This is not our heaviest load that we've ever had, and our capacity is extremely good for handling that workload. You asked who will be leading the search should you choose us. We have, as I said, 3 full-time consultants and a part-time consultant. You know Cheryl Ryan, who's worked with you most recently. I've had a long-standing relationship with you as well, and we are both available to you for that leadership role. Cheryl would be your lead on this project unless you chose otherwise. But no matter what you decide to do, no matter what direction you go in terms of the leadership for this project, all of us work together to support each other in the process. So you may choose a lead, and you'll know that you have an entire staff of 6 people, including support staff, to put their attention to the process.
So I wanted to address question 3, which talks a little bit about outreach. The first question focused on timing. In your proposal, which is on the right side of your packet, is our proposal, and there's a template for a timeline. However, I've taken the liberty on the left side of your proposal, right behind that presentation, you should find a draft of the timeline. So I went ahead and drafted an Olentangy Local Schools timeline to give you an idea about dates. That being said, any OSBA search is customized, and it's a board-centered search. This is your search, not ours. So these timeline dates can be adjusted. If you tell me, Cheryl, we really want to make this higher by, June 10th, for example, or May 31st, I'll do everything we can to back up dates and talk to you about what you'll have to give and take in order to meet that timeline. But I've gone ahead and created what I think is a workable timeline, depending upon your preferences, which of course we don't know yet. So that addresses the notion of timing. Our standard search is usually about 90 days long. So if you did everything according to the average in the model, we'd be looking at about 90 days from contracting to appointment. In terms of outreach and national reach, we're very proud of our national reach, and particularly in the last 5 to 7 years, that's been stepped up quite a bit. We use a couple of different tools to be more national in our search. The biggest one is our affiliation with the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. Kathy and I were just in Nashville last week at an annual meeting of that group. It consists of 39 or 40 full-time search consultants from the state associations across the country, and we meet twice a year to talk about best practices. And during the other times of the year, we use each other to vet national candidates. If we have a candidate applying for your position who lives in Iowa, it's very easy to call the Iowa State Association, speak to a search consultant, and ask if they have anything to offer about that candidate. So we do that quite often. We also cross-post on each other's websites, so your position would be posted on the State Association websites and on the National School Board Association page for superintendent search as well. The other thing that we do that really contributes to our national outreach is we are subscribers to a software program created by the Michigan School Board Association. I hate to give Michigan credit too much, but I will in this case, called Super Pro Match. And that is a database allowing superintendent candidates to go in and fill out a profile on themselves and what their ideal district would look like. Do I want a suburban district? Do I want an urban district? Do I want a district of 5,000 students? Do I want a district of 15,000 students? What do I think my key skills are? How mobile am I? How quickly would I be available? We would then, after meeting with you to develop your profile, put your profile into that database, and it would give us a list. If we say we want a 70% match rate or an 80% match rate, it would give us a list of potential candidates who we can then reach out directly to. We use a push and pull strategy at OSBA in terms of recruitment. So we do a lot of email marketing, we do a lot of website marketing, we do a lot of listserv direct marketing and advertising of the position, and we certainly do talk to individuals in our office over the phone and in person about the position during the course of recruiting. You asked about success and retention rates. So it gave us a great opportunity to do a little bit of research on our own. And again, on the left side of your packet, at the back, we've created this retention table. And the state of Ohio uses about a 3.5-year average length of service for superintendents. So if you look at the superintendents we've placed in that 3.5 to 4-year window, OSBA has about a 90% of the superintendents that we've placed in that 4-year window are still on the job. If you look back 5 years, which we did to answer your question, between 2010 and the end of 2013, before we started the 2014 year, between 2010 and 2013, approximately 72% of those superintendents are still on the job. We believe that the changes in STRS regulation certainly bumped up the rate at which superintendents took retirement. So what that table doesn't show you is why the superintendent might have left the district either through another position, a dismissal, a retirement. We don't have the answer to that question, but we do have that information for you there.
Your next question focuses on community input. And the question is, how and where do you incorporate community input into the process? We believe very strongly at OSBA that it is the Board of Education's legal and ethical responsibility to make the final selection of your superintendent. However, we also know, Cheryl in particular from her background as a board member, and with my background in community engagement and public relations, that communities want to know and need to know. And so in the process, in the formal phases of the process, early during the profile development phase, we do have a day in your district where we would conduct focus groups with role groups that you designate should be in the room. Typically it's teachers and administrators and booster groups, union representatives and so forth. Those are customized to your culture and your needs. We spend a day in the district in focus group conversations with those individuals who attend, and we ask them the basic questions of, what do you believe this district's basic challenges and opportunities are over the next 3 years? And what do you believe are the personal and professional qualities that the next superintendent should bring to the table in order to address those needs of the district? We compile the report for the Board of Education. Usually, the report of comments made by the public gives the board great insight into whether or not the criteria that you have set for this position is validated by your public, or whether they might inform you about some things you may have missed or help you to develop interview questions in the final evaluation of the candidates. So we do ask for input early in the process. We also create online opportunities for people to provide input into the desired qualities and characteristics. But the majority of the process is led by the Board of Education, guided by us on behalf of the board. At the end, when you are evaluating your candidates, we have multiple models for involving community in providing you with additional data in terms of observations of weaknesses and strengths of your final candidates, if you so choose to include that in your process. Again, this is a customized process that you may choose. If you choose to have people involved in that final evaluation of the candidates, we have multiple models of social gatherings all the way to a whole 10-hour day of candidates being rotated through groups. And again, that would be customized to your needs and to your culture here in the district. The next question that you asked is, do any members of our team have potential conflicts of interest with your school district that you need to be aware of? And I can say on behalf of the association and the two of us that we have no conflict of interest with your school district, but we do have high interest in making sure that you sustain the excellence that you've experienced to date. So our interest is in providing you a quality service and making sure that your candidates that come to you are of that highest quality and that you sustain your success long term. We want our relationship with you to be successful, and that means your success to us.
Last question you asked is about our fee structure. Our search is a $7,400 flat fee. It's all inclusive for the great majority, and we can talk about the things that aren't included in that $7,400 fee. But I would tell you that we've benchmarked our search process against those of many for-profit recruitment firms nationally, and we strongly believe that we have an almost identical process and that the value is there, and that those are the firms that could charge maybe 3 or 4 times what we charge. But because you are members of your association, we believe that we can provide that value, and that your subscription, along with all the other 600 and some members of OSBA, helps offset our costs so that we can provide what we think is a $30,000 or $40,000 search for $7,400 plus expenses. The expenses that it does not include mileage for your consultants and facilitators. So trips up and back to your district. We normally are with the board or with your community members about 4 times during the search. For you, I think I Google mapped, it's 6.2 miles from our office to yours, so you'd be a relatively cheap date in terms of expenses. Also, because you're doing the search at a great time of year and we are so close, you wouldn't have oftentimes the hotel and meal expenses that we sometimes incur in other districts. The only other key expense that would be in addition to that $7,400 is the printing and mailing of the brochure. We write it, edit, set it up, and design our marketing brochure for you, and that's included in the fee. If you choose to print and mail it, as most districts do, there's an $1,800 cost simply for stamps and printing of the envelope, of the brochure. If you choose to go strictly with electronic marketing, as some districts are opting to do, there would be no additional cost. So we strongly believe the value and the cost of our search and are willing to certainly work with you if you have any other questions in that regard.
And I just have two other points that I would like to make. One relates back to question 3, when you asked about the tools and materials that support our search process. We do have an enhancement that we have added to the process that's included in the base fee at no additional cost to you. And that is a tool that we're really excited about, and it's called the Achiever Candidate Assessment. I don't think Cheryl mentioned that when she answered question 3, but it's really important for you to know. It's been added within the last year and a half, and what we've done is OSBA has worked with a consultant from the private sector to take a typically corporate sector candidate assessment tool from their HR world and adapt it to the education world. And we have created a tool that your finalists will take online. It's an assessment that's online. It will measure them in certain personality and skill set arenas, and it will provide for you a report that includes strengths and weaknesses as measured against state and national standards for superintendent performance. And it will also provide for you potential interview questions that you can ask in the final interview that are behavioral based and customized for the candidate's strengths and weaknesses. And the bonus is that we'll also provide for you guidance as to if you hire this candidate, you might want to think about including these things in the first year of his or her performance evaluation goals. So it's a tool that we have exclusive use of in the state of Ohio. We have an exclusive contract with the company. No one else in the state of Ohio can use it with boards of education in public schools. And we're really happy. We have several testimonials from districts that have used it within the search process that are extremely pleased. And it's helped them, according to them, discern between those finalists as to who emerged as the cream of the crop. That is offered within the cost of the search for 3 finalists.
The other thing I wanted to mention before we take any questions or address anything in the presentation, this presentation you might have a question about, is, as always, the OSBA guarantee tells you that if you retain us through your search and we get to the end of the search and you're not happy with your final candidate or are unable to come to a successful contract negotiation, we'll repeat the search and it doesn't cost you anything. The second thing that the search also includes, along with the Achiever and the other things we've mentioned, is within the first 6 months of the superintendent's employment, if the board would like a leadership customized workshop, team development workshop, we'll do that as well. And that'll be professionally facilitated for you and included in the cost of the search. Do any of you have any questions for us?
I Go ahead,
do. Can you touch on how you can ensure candidate confidentiality? I know when I did this before, that was a huge issue. They didn't want to apply because they had jobs, so how do you address,
It's a great question. Ohio is obviously a highly transparent state. And we are definitely at the leading edge in terms of public records requests and those kinds of things. And we believe overall it's a good thing. So we'll work within the parameters of what is legally and ethically what we need to do in the state of Ohio. Candidates for superintendent searches often wait until the last week of the posting to apply. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I think that many of us think that candidates think they can sort of fly under the radar if they wait till the end of the posting period to apply. We believe that our long-term relationships with media members throughout the state have been very beneficial to us in terms of our searches. And most of your local reporters want the best for your district. They live in your district, they want the best for your district. And so we work hard to develop a relationship with media members so that we're all on the same page. And we believe that answering their questions promptly, returning their phone calls, etc., gets them on our team in terms of what's best for you in a search. We try and protect candidates confidentially to the extent possible, and we never give anything away to the public without the board and the candidates being aware first. oftentimes the element of surprise is the worst thing. And so if a request is made by a media member for information that we need to provide legally, the board and the candidates will always be given first notice of that. But overall, I think our track record in protecting candidates' confidentiality until the point at which they become a finalist has been pretty good.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I think you did a good
I
job.
have several more.
Keep going, we'll just fill in behind you.
Okay, I was really interested, and I pulled it up, your Super Pro match, because that's the first, we didn't have it before when we had done another search for a superintendent. But do you find in your searches that many candidates from outside Ohio apply? Are we attractive, or is Ohio too different? And in the way the reason I think that is because our funding structure is so odd to other states, and now that's become a big part of the superintendent's job is school funding issues. So do you find a lot of people from outside Ohio apply?
I wouldn't say we have the majority of candidates in every pool from out of state, but
Right.
there are out-of-state candidates in almost every search that we conduct. And the Super Pro Match database, by the way, has over 1,000 people in it now. Many of those people are from Ohio. So that's an important thing to note. But we do attract candidates from out of state, and number one, many states have similar issues with school funding, even though their nuances are different.
Yeah.
They're facing the same kinds of issues. But number two, we've got a lot of candidates that we see wanting to come back to Ohio who maybe were born and raised here, they leave the state, they want to come back to be close to family. It's always been their dream to come back. Perhaps they have elderly parents that they want to be close to. Children are in college at Ohio State. They want to be here, while their children are in college. They want to relocate here. Ohio is an attractive state for superintendent candidates. So although we don't see an abundance of out-of-state candidates, we do see them in almost every case.
I recently did a search up in Northwest Ohio, fairly prominent school district, and almost 20% of the candidates were from out of state. So it really does depend on the search. I would expect that your search would certainly draw out-of-state candidates. What's interesting for me to note is in working with boards, a lot of times a board will say, we really want to do a national search. We hope that, we have some national candidates. And when it gets down to the time that they need to select their pool, they want candidates who really understand what is going on and are tending to lean more towards selecting in-state candidates for interview. But to answer your basic question, I would expect that if your candidate pool numbered 25 or 30, that 5 or 6 of them would be out-of-state candidates.
If we're still on the pool, could you spend a minute on how you might ensure that there's sufficient depth and breadth of the pool in terms of diversity?
That's a great question. There are several online tools that we've used. Michigan State has a great diversity tool, and there are a couple of publications that target diverse audiences specifically. We also work with the CUBE Association, which is I don't know if you want to call it a work-alike group, but it's a subset of the National School Board Association that deals with minority students, superintendents, and administrative leaders. And so we can market the position to the CUBE group. So there are ways that we can reach out there in terms of diversity. In terms of the quality of the pool, knowing what I know about your district, I really don't think that will be an issue for you. I think we'll have a good number of candidates, and I'm hoping your situation is that it's difficult for you to decide who to interview. We always tell districts it only takes one. Sometimes it's a little harder to find that one than it is at other times, but I'm expecting that we could draw a really nice quality pool for you, and if diversity is important to you, we'll make note and talk about some things that we can do to make special effort there.
I believe that it is, and
Yeah.
I guess I'd be curious at some point too, do you have a feel for what that pool has looked like from previous searches? By percentage of candidates, do you have a feel for what that's been like and what you've done or helped other districts with in that search process?
In terms of female candidates, female versus male candidates, our numbers are still fairly small in Ohio for female superintendents, but again, anecdotally, I think maybe 10% of our applicants are females. In terms of minority candidates, ethnic candidates, the pool is much smaller. We have a fairly decent number of African American candidates in the pool right now. They tend to apply in districts where there are higher numbers of African American students. So we do see African American candidates more often in northeastern Ohio searches, but they're there. And again, if that is a concern of yours and you want us to make a concentrated effort, we'll do everything we can to make sure that those candidates are in the pool.
Our close association with CUBE and NSBA help with that regard. We have the leader of the CUBE group at the national level comes to our urban district advisory network meetings oftentimes, and it's a phone call away for her to reach out and do some searching for us and recruiting for us, or at the very least, providing us with names of individuals that she thinks might fit your district, and so that we can approach them.
And Kathy makes a great point. We have an urban district advisory network that's really been revitalized in the last 18 months. Their activity has grown quite exponentially, I think, in the last year or two. And we could certainly lean on members of that group to help get the word out and help market the position.
We also have a presence with the CUBE affiliation in terms of exposure at their conferences. We can post to their website. We can reach out to any individual in that group to assist us.
I have one final question. You had mentioned about the brochure, there's an additional cost if you print and mail it, but who would you be mailing it to?
We have about 3,200 mailing addresses that those brochures go to. They go to all K-12 school districts in the state of Ohio, treasurers and superintendents. They go to all higher ed institutions in Ohio. They go to any related organizations and associations that are affiliated or associated with education. They go to an enormous number of individuals who've requested those postings from us. And it's also posted with your vacancy on our website and then at the national level. What we've learned in our research is that the districts that do use the electronic brochure method are getting smaller pools of candidates. What we've heard from our treasurers and superintendents is that when they receive a paper brochure in the mail, they recognize it. To be honest with you, it's the same style we've been using for years. People recognize it, they read it. When they receive an email with an attachment, they may or may not read it. It may go into a trash bin or a hold file. That's been our experience. But it would be your choice, and if you would choose the electronic approach, we would certainly try to link that to as many opportunities as we can to get it exposed.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, go ahead.
It's a push-pull you mentioned earlier. So from a recruiting standpoint then, between brochures and your pool of people that you know and electronic, of the superintendent searches you've done, which of those has brought you the best candidates that you've been presenting to school boards? Has it come from, is it a mix, or is there one area that you get better results from as far as quality?
I would say the brochure in general, whether or not it's electronic or printed, is probably still our #1 ally in terms of marketing and advertising the position. Because the brochure we'll work with you on writing that brochure, and there is a section in the brochure where the board provides some narrative about what in particular they're looking for, and we find superintendent candidates, treasurer candidates as well, and treasurer searches will go to those bullets and they'll look for that. It also provides customized information about your community. We use your Chamber of Commerce websites, your school website, economic development websites, et cetera, to write something. So candidates who aren't from Central Ohio, maybe not as familiar with Olentangy, will certainly look at the brochure to learn a little bit about your greater community as well as your school district. So I would say the brochure, both electronic and mail, people will often tell us. The other thing about the printed brochure that we often hear is, I'm not really looking for a job, so therefore I'm not on the OSBA website and looking at superintendent searches, et cetera, but I saw this brochure come through, and even though I'm really happy in my current position, I'm just not sure I can pass up this potential opportunity. So a lot of times the candidates that you might most want to meet aren't the candidates that are in the job market currently.
Mhm.
And so they're seeing the brochure and possibly one of our emails or hearing from one of us personally is what will turn the switch for them.
We also hear individuals tell us they pass those brochures to people that they think would be great for the position. You know, in case you haven't seen this, look at it.
Did we use the brochure for Mr. Kern?
You did.
You remember reading it?
Although he called me the next day begging, so.
Do you have other questions for us?
Mine are answered.
I just have one. My questions have been answered from both of you. But I just wanted to follow up on number 5 here about, I just like to have an understanding that not basically on the core fee, but that there is some comfort that we would still negotiate what those services are, scope, and the resulting fee. So the example that's here, I think, is a good example. When we did the search for the treasurer position, Ms. Niehaus here in the district, administrative assistant, she was the one who did all of that scheduling and made that process happen. She did an excellent job. I don't think personally that's something we need to pay a consultant
I don't know
to
that-
manage.
Yeah, I don't know that she did the scheduling.
Are you talking about the
Coord-
candidates for the interviews?
Yes, for the interview.
She coordinated with them.
She coordinated with me, but
Yeah.
we call all of your candidates personally.
Yeah.
So let's say you get 40
Secure.
applicants and you choose to interview
Yeah.
10. I or Kathy would call all 10 of those people, talk to them about the position and book.
Well, I
them.
understand that.
And then Terry booked the room and then made sure we were all available.
Correct. But that was done in-house and managed the process when the candidates were here. She was the one who brought them to the room. Next person's here, we'll have them wait
Okay, we can talk
till you're
about that.
ready. But I just want to make sure there's a comfort level to
Sure.
discuss these items.
And should you ever want your consultant to be here to manage any of that, based on the consultant's availability, we'll certainly do that for you. We are often in our districts for interviews. If you have, let's just say you're interviewing 10 and you're doing it over 3 different evenings, that can become a little bit difficult for us. But when it comes down to the day that you interview your finalists, particularly if you involve your community in any sort of a meet and greet, round robin type situation, one of us will definitely be here.
Okay.
I have one last fee
Last
question.
one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. In the contract itself, the service agreement, so this is just my last thing, which is just mostly, so when your original cost came in as estimated costs at 7,400 plus expenses, in the contract fee structure section, it says 4,000 invoiced to the board to sign the contract, 1,800 invoiced for development, printing, and posters of the brochure, and then $3,400 final installment, all as a flat fee. So I see the 7,400 between the 4 and the 34, and then the 1,800 is in here, but it didn't appear anyplace else. So I'm assuming that's what you talked about earlier. That's strictly for the brochure development?
That's an expense.
Exactly. And you would not be billed for that, obviously, if you don't print and mail your brochure.
Okay,
And that is reflection of the actual printing mailing costs.
okay, so if that's the option we go, then the fee is 9,200, not 7,400? Correct.
7,400, right, plus the
Correct.
printing and
Plus the
mailing
18,
cost for the
okay.
brochure.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear. That's it.
Okay, I guess we're out of time. So thank you for coming in. It was a great
Yes, great.
discussion, very.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You're very prepared, I appreciate that.
And if I can leave you, I do have a copy of the signed contract if you determine to act on it, we'll be all ready.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you again for your time.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume we'll wait. We could talk after both. Both come through. And Devin, I just emailed you the questions. Okay, so that way if anyone, the media wants them, available.
Please, restroom.
We'll take a 10-minute recess.
Yeah.
Hi.
Lou?
where should I sit?
You can go to the podium if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Okay. So let me, I'll tee it up. So our next firm is the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio, the ESC.
I'll tell you a story about that. First of all, Georgetown.
Hi, yes, Julie Fiesel. Yep.
Georgetown,
Yes.
nice to meet you.
George, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Hi. Roger Bartz.
Roger, Georgetown.
George.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Georgetown. Good, nice to meet you. Excuse me, can I hand you one of this?
GT on the front?
Yeah, on the very front cover.
Like the teacher's copy?
Yeah, does that have the answers
Cliff
in
notes.
it?
Okay, I think I reversed them. Let me check. I was busy talking shop with Jack out there, so we're... Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this evening. My name is George Tombo. I work at the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio. I work on a group, it's called a Client Services Group. We provide services to 28 school districts in our footprint area that we provide services in there, a direct alignment of services for our districts. Unfortunately, Dale McVeigh is your client services representative. Dale is out of town, but he asked me if I would assist in this process. I said I'd be very, very happy to. So I'd like to answer the questions you've presented. I have some handouts as well that I'll review for you as well. So perhaps I can start with the first question you have. I guess the first question, what other superintendent searches are you involved with at this point? We are not officially involved in any searches at this point. We were asked to present a proposal to Gahanna School District. We've not heard back from them at this point, so we want to make it clear that that's a potential, but we don't know for sure. But certainly at this point, you're the only one that we'd be committed to at this, if selected. Second question, who'd be the lead consultant? That would be Dale McVeigh. Dale was a long-term superintendent at Hilliard and background in education as well. I would be assisting Dale. Again, I've been superintendent for over 27 years in 2 districts. I've been retired from Westerville. I retired there after 7 years. In 2007, I've been working at Educational Service Center since that time as well. We would have Mike Trigo. Mike is our assistant deputy superintendent, and Mike was a long-term assistant superintendent in Dublin, so he would assist in the process as we go forward. Next, on HR side, we have an online application process. So the candidates would be working through Melissa Riley from our HR department. And since that is an online process, you as board members can follow the applications as they're completed and filed as well. So you'll be completely up to date on a day-to-day basis if you so choose. And each individual would have access to that information as well. In addition, we have then information from our communications department. They would help design and working with your public relations and communications person with the application specifically, and then also the news releases as they're developed. Again, and that would be in cooperation with your communications department or board president. Some boards of education, the board president likes to be the communicator. Sometimes he wants or she wants to be involved in developing those releases. So that's an individual basis. Next, you asked to describe our outreach with specific focus on timing, national reach, candidate confidentiality, and tools and materials specifically. First of all, as far as timing goes, if we're selected, we would develop a timeline immediately for the critical milestones that must be met over the next several weeks. We would anticipate an 8 to 10-week process to complete the search. We believe it takes approximately 1 month to advertise clearly. And then during that period of time, if you so choose, we could begin our targeted search as well. Then typically as we would get into May at this point, we would begin the interviewing process, probably with 1 or 2 rounds of interviews, other background checks and information. But we would expect at the minimum we should be able to complete this by the end of end of May, maybe early June. Some other factors get into it this time of year. There are end-of-school activities. Scheduling for you and the candidates can be troublesome sometimes. Also, if you wish to have a site visit to a finalist as well, or finalists, that would take some time to coordinate. So it's a matter of putting all this together, contract negotiation. So we would, again, think about in terms of a 8 to 10 week process. Let's see here. I would like to turn to your packet of information. On the left side, we have an announcement vacancy. And this was an example of one we developed for the Grandview School District. We were involved in that search last year. And the information presented, again, a lot of this is provided by the school district, again, developed in cooperation with the communications department. So we talk about a bit about the superintendent search, about Grandview City School District specifically, a bit about the community, position overview, and then the leadership criteria that the Board of Education expects to prevail in this particular case. Sometimes this is drawn from board policy, sometimes a job description, but basically it's the expectations the Board of Education would have for this particular candidate as well. Then on the last page, a brief outline of the terms and conditions of employment, the application process, proposed timeline, and then the contact information. Again, the board consultant, our HR department, and then listed Board of Education members. Again, we would anticipate that timing-wise, again, if we were selected to conduct the search, we'd begin drafting this proposal immediately, board review and approval, and then we would put an announcement out. And I'd like to review maybe the different ways we announce this particular vacancy. First of all, it's posted across the state of Ohio with the Ohio School Boards Association, the Buckeye Association of School Administrators, that's a state administrators organization, Ohio School Business Officials. We place it on the Ohio Department of Education website, college placement offices, over 30 across Ohio. We send it to those organizations. We email statewide to superintendents across our entire state. And then we also would put on the website for our agency as well, the Olentangy Local School District. Nationally, we would send this to American Association of School Administrators. They have a national publication, National Secondary or Superintendents Association. And lastly, if you would desire, first of all, we have two other possibilities. We have Midwest Superintendents Association. Those are the superintendents of the most high-achieving school districts in 6 states here in the Midwest. And our superintendent, Tom Goodney, belongs to that organization. We promote to that organization as well. And then if you so wish, Education Week has paid advertising. Again, the price would depend upon the size of the article publication, the number of times you wish to have it published, but that's one way to have a national publication as well. That might run $1,000 to $2,000 depending upon the extent, number of weeks, and size of the advertisement. Next question relates to confidentiality. We believe this is very, very important for all concerned. First of all, we recommend that the candidates contact the search consultant directly if they have questions. Sometimes they contact us directly. They may even contact other superintendents or other organizations. Again, we always ask everybody, please send if you have questions as a potential candidate, contact the search consultant. Also, we're asking if a board member is contacted, and you certainly will be, and staff members, community members, again, refer those individuals to the consultant. We think that provides confidentiality and improves the process. Also, we expect the consultant and board members to observe confidentiality as well. Sometimes in casual conversations, things may be said inadvertently, but at the same time, the word gets around, and this is a very high-profile position, and a lot of people are going to be interested to know what's going on, so we ask that as well. And then also, we ask if there are any media inquiries, those be referred to the consultant as well. We think it's very, very important that occur. Now, in some cases, perhaps the board president wishes to deal with the media directly, that's fine. We just would need to have an understanding clearly to begin with, who's going to be the direct contact for the media, and we'll answer those questions, but we want to make sure we're clear and speak with one message. About tools and materials, again, I did cover the the announcement, I would like to refer you to the right page as well of your folder. And the first item there to the right would be your what's called leadership profile assessment. And I think one of the questions was asked of, how do we involve the community in the process? So I'd like to refer you to the leadership profile assessment. I might explain to begin with. This is developed and aligned to the superintendent standards that are adopted by the state of Ohio. So we'll get into those standards in a few minutes. But again, and this could be administered, again, online or through focus groups, and I'll address that in a few minutes as well. But online opens this up to everybody. We compile all the information, provide that as a complete summary if you wish, and we also have a news release I'll share at the end as well. In addition to that, if you desire, we can organize focus groups. Some communities prefer focus groups or staff members in focus groups. An advantage in a focus group is that people need to reach consensus in groups of 5, 6, or 7 as to the ranking of these specific standards and elements. So we feel in that way you may have a more of a consensus view of the questions as opposed to just individual views, and maybe things do not get skewed. Although I'd have to say realistically, with the number of searches we've been involved in, typically it's leadership, vision, communication are the top 3 areas that communities and school boards are interested in. Leadership, vision, 1 or 2, usually communications would be number 3 as well. And I'll walk through the entire process in a minute. So the first question we ask, what are some strengths of the school district? Again, this was I ran the Findlay superintendent search a year or so ago, and this was an exact copy of their instrument, but at the same time, it just has Findlay go as substitute Olentangy in their place. Question 2, what do you consider to be the 2 or 3 most important needs? 3, please share 2 or 3 skills or qualities you would like to see. Then question 4, again, it's an opportunity for the community to say, would you like to provide a question to us in our interview process that you'd like us to consider as well? We think that is important. As you move to the next page, page 2, we begin with the standards that have been established. Again, I'll address this a bit later as this relates to an evaluation system as well. But again, the people taking the survey rank order top 3 elements under vision, continuous improvement, focus of district work. The second standard relates to communication and collaboration. Again, there's a place for people to write in a different element if they wish. The third, policies and governance. The fourth is instruction. The next would be resources. As you turn the page, we go into special projects and other duties. Then when it's all said and done, as you look at question 6, we ask you then to rank basically what are the most important things that you see just kind of collectively, again, from vision, communication, policies, governance, instruction, resources, special projects, skills, leadership, and other. So basically asking people to rank order the top 3 in their opinion. The others were the elements. These are the actual standards themselves. And then question 7, please share an important personal characteristic you would like to see the superintendent have. And then number 8, we'd like to nominate somebody. So one of the questions, how are we going to involve the community in this process? And so they may ask a question, and again, we compile all this. If somebody you would like to nominate, please provide that information at this point. The last page really is something that I guess a news release we put together for Findlay as related to the superintendent profile. I won't go through all the details, but I think they had 135 individuals, and they had a combination of online as well as focus groups. But as you can see, leadership skills was number 1. We talked around vision, communication, identified strengths for the community as well, and then some response identified the most important needs, because this gets into part of the search process. As you're identifying needs for the school district community, what does the candidate bring to help solve those specific needs as well? So that would be the one instrument that we use in the process. Another one I would like to share would be the next one, called the superintendent search. Part of our process includes an opportunity to meet with community members. the community members and staff. This could be through an invitation group that was brought in your large district. That may be one way to do this. Another would be to have actually a community event, a forum where you invite individuals in. And then everybody that attends that forum has an opportunity to provide feedback to the Board of Education. Again, when these questions are based on the standards and the profile, the needs identified, then in turn, that would enable us then to ask the questions and then summarize those as to the feedback. Again, it's the board's decision. At the same time, it's important to have feedback. But again, the individuals are not making a decision. They're just providing feedback to you. So again, we believe this is another opportunity for community feedback. So on the profile and then community opportunity to provide feedback. Question 4, what are your success rate and retention rate on searches you have completed in the last 5 years? Last 5 years, we've involved in 12 searches for superintendents. We have a number of treasurers in addition to that. And have they been successful? The answer is yes. We've been able to fill all of those positions. Majority of those individuals are still in those positions. And in fact, maybe one individual may have retired during that period of time or has retired here soon, and others may have taken other positions. But we feel, by and large, the vast majority of people we have employed, again, are still in those positions, and we successfully filled those. How we define success, and really look at this as a collaboration, the consultant, the candidate, and the Board of Education. As we turn, I'd like to take a look at the issue regarding retention. We really believe this is very, very important, not only to have a successful search, but also retain that individual for stability of the organization, the board, the community, the staff. Everybody needs to have stability and retention. So what we try to provide in our process and your member district, our goal is to have a long-term relationship with Olentangy schools. You are really our second largest. Columbus is our largest aligned school district. You're the next largest. We also believe that this is an opportunity to not only help set the future for the organization, but work with the new superintendent coming in. So to ensure that, we work with the individual coming in to develop a transition plan for the new superintendent. So to understand clearly when the person begins what they're going to be focused on for the next several months for you and the community and the Board of Education. Also, we will help facilitate the implementation of the Ohio Superintendent Evaluation System. That was recently adopted last few years, tied to the standards. The standards were mentioned a brief time ago. And again, those standards are based upon performance instrument. We also help identify measurable annual objectives in collaboration with the Board of Education. We feel it's important to have clear understanding. The district needs to be aligned. You have overarching goals. We need to have objectives for the superintendent. The buildings need to be aligned, and the whole organization has to be an aligned organization. So we feel the superintendent, as the lead for the school district, needs to have well-defined objectives. We also assist in developing work plans for those objectives. We feel it's one thing to have an objective. It's another thing to have a well-defined work plan, and that builds into the evaluation system. And then after 6 months, there's a formal evaluation. After 12 months, there's a summative evaluation as well. I mean, we feel this is important, and we really believe this should be built in. We recommend it to the boards of education as well as to the candidates in their contracts as well. We think it needs to be very clear how they're going to be evaluated in the process as well. One of the other steps in this is to also update your job description as well for the superintendent tied to the standards. And there's a model job description that can be utilized, and you take some of the components of your current job description and then involve those in the development of a new job description. Question 5, how and where do you incorporate community input? I think perhaps I covered that in the leadership profile, specifically on the profile of the community meet and greet feedback form. Do any members of your team have potential conflicts of interest with Olentangy Local School District? The answer is none. Question 7, how flexible are we in fees? Will the fees change if some administrative functions, setting up meetings, are assumed by the district personnel? Number 1, we are flexible on the fee. Once a timeline has been established and responsibilities are assigned, there may be an opportunity for some reduction in the fee. As an example, earlier I mentioned focus groups. Again, depending upon how those are organized, how often they're held, One time we had 20 different focus groups for an organization. That's a lot of time and organization to be able to put that together. So if you would like to have focus groups, this is something perhaps somebody on your staff could operate. I mean, they could organize it, they could schedule it, they could hold the groups. The difficulty sometimes with a focus group is getting enough people. Most you have existing organizations. You have a parents' organization, one for the entire district that meets, say, a council of your PTOs, PTAs, that's one way, your booster groups. You may have school activities. So focus groups, that's one option, but certainly online is another one as well. So that would be one way to reduce your the fee. Now, I want to make it clear on the fee. There was an article in the paper last week which wasn't quite correct. I believe it, excuse me. The newspaper article said the agency's fee could be cut in half if Olentangy limited search the Central Ohio area. That's really not the intent of that language. I do have the proposal in your background information. What it really says is this, that cost options 1 and 2, and I'll address in a moment, are reduced by 1/2 for school districts in the ESC Central Ohio footprint. Basically, we cover Union, Franklin, and Delaware counties and some outlying districts, so we have 28 districts. For those member districts that are aligned with us, we cut the fee in half, but does not limit our search. Our search will be national, state, and local, so I want to make that very, very clear to me.
So because we are a member of the ESC, our fee would be cut in half?
That's correct, yes, that's correct. And so we have 2 fee options. One would be if it's particularly a paper search, an application specifically, that fee would be $6,500, or if reduced in half, would be $3,250. Option 2, that would be the targeted search. Again, your share would be $4,500. That's normally $9,000. That's 1/2. So what does a targeted search look like? First of all, it includes a paper search and targeted recruitment. Now, targeted candidates are those individuals who are sitting superintendents specifically. They're knowledgeable, they have experience, they're skilled, they work in high-performing school districts, and many times those individuals are very comfortable and happy in the district they're working in. They're not seeking positions. Well, our job is to bring candidates to you. That's what we call part of the head-hunting process. You know, colleges, universities do this all the time. They seek out individuals. And so how that process would work, again, now sometimes people are contacting us, sometimes third parties send people to us specifically, and we have a network of folks we would contact as well. So we seek out those individuals that might have an interest. Now, how the process works is this: those individuals would meet with the consultant and 1 or 2 board members specifically to explore the position and determine if there's mutual interest in the prospect becoming an official applicant. So it's a prospecting process. Again, recruitment of individuals is a two-way street. Sometimes people are very, very happy where they are, particularly younger families. People do not want to move, even though this is a great location. Central Ohio is a desirable place. But when it all comes down to, families do not want to move many times, or boards of education up the ante, unfortunately, and they improve the person's contract and salary, and we hate to see that happen. But sometimes people do decide they're very happy and they'll stay where they are. So our process then would be the targeted candidates. Again, if you choose to go that direction, we begin that process immediately as the other positions are posted. Candidates, like I said, have a month to apply. During that time, we run concurrently a targeted search and begin setting up meetings. Well, again, that would be helpful to have 1 or 2 board members designated for that process, so there's consistency through the interview process. And then as we move into the first and second round interviews, if we have individuals who, again, are targeted candidates, they would come into the interviews. Again, now they're not an official applicant until they apply. And until that application is completed and on file, again, that name is not released. That's, and we've been advised, and other boards have checked with our counsel as well. But once an applicant applies, that is a public record. At that time, the individuals need to understand that their name will become public, and therefore they need to inform their current employer that they're under consideration for a position as well. So in summary, I think maybe what differentiates us from other organizations, first of all, we talk about we're not conducting any other searches at this point. We believe the online application, your access is unique. The leadership profile, we believe, tied to standards, provides information directly and clearly to you as the Board of Education. Again, there's an online process as well as the focus groups. There's a feedback form for your community meetings with the candidates. And also, we believe that the retention, the Ohio Superintendent Evaluation System, to support not only currently but ongoing as well for that candidate, because we really have experienced superintendent as Dale is as a coach for your future superintendent. We're flexible on the fees, and then the targeted process. So we feel those are a few things that make us unique in our search process. So I'll stop at this point. I've been doing a lot of talking to answer your questions.
I have questions.
Yes.
And it's back to that targeted search.
Yes.
I just, if myself as a board member, if I say, well, I like what they're doing up in District A, can you contact that person and see if they're interested in applying? Like, could I say that to you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact,
Okay.
that's how we get a lot of our names.
Okay.
Names come from people that we're aware of, people professionally we associate with, but also board members continually provide feedback. Even somebody will contact, that's what we're saying, if somebody contacts you as relates to consult, a candidate contact me in Findlay. I received numerous names from board members or community people knew somebody, so they would send that to board member and I would follow up. So absolutely, that's part of the process.
In your experience, Ohio candidates versus those candidates outside of Ohio, do we get many people from outside of the state to apply to positions, or what's been your experience?
Generally not many, and those that are some of they're perennial applicants, and we're always concerned anytime we receive an application from outside, we do a Google search right away. Yeah, what's going on with this person? Why do they want to leave their particular position? I would have to say many times there may be people that have Ohio roots in the past or family here. They may contact us in the process as well. But generally, depending upon where people are in their career, but not many really looking to come to Ohio specific, unless there's some other, again, family or experience with our retirement system. It's very lucrative. Many people want to come back to Ohio to finish their career, but generally there's not much movement, no. Or maybe they're retiring from another state. Other questions? Yes, sir.
While we're on the pool, how do you work to build a sufficiently diverse candidate pool?
That's really, first of all, through the organizations that we send this to, we ask for the names of individuals that might be looking to become a superintendent. Maybe they're an assistant in a larger school district specifically. They have broad experience, but we reach out as many different ways as we can to identify a diverse pool of candidates, and sometimes just contacting people that we know to ask, do you have people that with a diverse background that we can bring to the Board of Education?
First of all, thank you for clarifying the basis of the fee structure.
Okay,
I saw that in the paper as well, and I said, oh, wait a second, that wasn't correct. So thank you for doing that publicly.
happy
so
to.
that
Thank you.
that's correct information. And then to tag on to what Julie said, I think if I may speak for Julie, and I know she, this is basically how she feels and why she asked the question, but in regard to out of state, there's two main factors that come into play, and I'm asking if you would agree. One is how the state funds schools, and two is the curriculum base in Ohio with state standards.
That is certainly.
Is that fair, Julie?
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio is unique in many respects, and there's no question about that. Particularly bond issue, that's something not every state has. The school funding, to understand that correctly. Common Core is kind of emerging across the nation. But I would think probably it's the law specifically to have a clear understanding of that. Financing is part of that. And also just the way things work in Ohio, because we have local control of school districts, and our funds are collected locally. In some states, you have county forms of school districts. Money is collected on a county-wide basis, or it's provided through the county commissioners. So there are different ways people need to understand how the money flows as well. There's no question.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have another question.
Sure.
So is all of your outreach done mostly one-on-one or electronically? Is that how you would describe getting the word out?
Well, yeah, announcing the position,
Right.
that's pretty much electronic, yes. But as far as target candidate, that's really personal. It's one-on-one, just being able to pick up the phone, start calling people. I ran a search for Lincoln Heights treasurer position. I contacted over 50 people, asking them to look and talk and consider that position. And treasurers are much like superintendents. They're very happy many times. But so it's our job to dig those names to people on it. Absolutely.
I think you already answered the question, and I appreciate the example you used about focus groups. I just want to make sure there's a comfort level that once a firm is selected, if your firm is selected, that there can be a conversation to confirm the scope of services and what reimbursables will be applicable, et cetera. The focus
Absolutely.
group is a perfect example.
Yes.
How many, what kind, and then obviously that would have an adjustment. There's a comfort level to have that conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I put that as an example, because some districts do not want focus groups. Some say, just work with our administrators. Others will say, as an example, one was 20 focus groups. That's time intensive, evenings, transportation, travel, and then who contacts all those groups to bring them in, because you have to select the individuals, invite them in, and so you're correct. That would have to be, it's fee-based, and we'll have to determine the cost of that.
I just have one last one. So, on the leadership profile assessment, I appreciate you providing that and talking that through a little bit. I'm really I'm piggybacking on what Julie said earlier about the nomination process. I mean, when you've done these searches, are you getting a high number that come that way? Because to me, that would be a really strong direct pipeline. I guess I'm curious as to how effective that is, that nomination process has been for you, where people actually come to you and say, call candidate A and candidate B.
I would have to say, generally, it's not been very productive. Yes, we do follow up, but many people are very satisfied in their current position and not seeking a change. That's what I found. But at the same time, maybe somebody will consider it, but then withdraw later on. They're just, usually people either are really interested, want to look at it, or they are already aware of it. So we can try, but we do follow up on these names, absolutely.
Do you see this has the market for the jobs that are out there available, has it been active? Do you see it as a very active market right now?
I think we're probably on the downside of the wave. You know, we had the retirements going on within the last 2 to 3 years with the change in the retirement system. So I think, and there was changes actually diminished those retirement benefits this year. So I think we kind of reached the crest. So I think it's tapered off at this point. But then there's something on the other side to think about as a Board of Education. Would you consider somebody who's already retired? We have a lot of young people, men, women, in their early 50s now that have a good 10, 15 years of a career ahead of them. Is that something you would consider? Some boards of education will say, we do not want to hire somebody that's retired. Others would say, boy, these are experienced people, or half the districts in Ohio have a superintendent that's been retired at some point. That's something to think about to improve your chances of an experienced superintendent.
Any other questions?
No.
No? Very much.
I appreciate you being prepared.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
And thanks for the material, thanks for the presentation, really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm going to just ask, what is your timeline for decision?
We're going to, tonight.
Okay, so we will know, I will know either tonight or tomorrow?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, fair, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what candidates also ask, what's the timeline?
Oh, yes.
When am I going to know?
Yeah, number one question, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, again, we appreciate the honor of being able to present information and be happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've heard from OSBA, we're from ESC. Any thoughts? Reaction?
Maybe we'll give them a minute.
I think he can stay. It's been-
I should probably remind you, you can't necessarily take action, but we can
Right.
take action at the next board meeting to say,
Well, and
to
we talked
approve
about-
signing the
I don't
contract.
necessarily, because of the dollar amount, I don't think it meets the board approval threshold, right?
The meeting was set up to be just an interview process,
Interview
the
process.
agenda, so we can't really amend the agenda to say, hey, let's approve them tonight. So we
But
could approve.
I think the question is, do you have to approve it? Can you just, does there have to be a vote because of
I thought you
the
could-
amount in the contract.
Okay.
The board could just
I
instruct
mean,
me to
yeah,
enter
it's
into an
underneath,
agreement.
you know, it's way underneath any, you know, contract requirement. If there's any issues, we'll bring it back again to the board for approval of contract. I'll check with legal counsel. so.
Yeah, I thought the board could just instruct me to enter into an agreement, not sign it, with whichever firm we choose.
Yeah, okay.
So that'd be worth checking.
I've
Pros,
used
cons?
both groups. We used the ESC the first time we did a search, when Dr. Davis was resigning. And then we used OSBA when we found Mr. Kern. I was extremely happy with the treasurer's search.
With the search or with the treasurer?
Well, yeah, with the treasurer, with this treasurer search process that we use through
Wow, that's
OSBA.
twice in one
Well,
day.
we'll get to him in his evaluation, right?
Oh, that's right, this
Yeah.
was evaluation.
That's,
This is not
yeah.
official.
But I was very, if I had to look at the two different processes, knowing that they were two different positions, the process was much better from OSBA than what I had received through the ESC. And just to clarify, when Dr. Davis resigned due to health reasons, we engaged with the ESC, went through the interview process, brought back finalists, and ended up not hiring them. So we just sat there and thought, nobody stood out and said Olentangy to us. We had to start all over again. So that kind of weighs in on my decision, having had a positive experience with OSBA and the treasurer search, and having to start over with the ESC when we did the superintendent search.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, if you think of approach, it's all the same basic approach, right? They're all going to run through a screening process, do some background checks, evaluations, community input. They've all got the basic construct of a search. What it's going to come down to is who do you think can execute it better? And given our experience with OSBA, I feel more comfortable with OSBA. And Cheryl in particular.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree based on the presentations on their face. I think there were two things that stood out is, I don't know that the ESC gentleman understood the diversity question and really addressed it head on. I think of a generic statement. And I think that relates directly to the number of candidate searches they've done in the last 5 years. So if you've only done, my understanding was 12 in the last 5 years.
12 in the last 5 years.
It doesn't necessarily give you a strong enough pool to really have a chance to take a look at the diversity issue. That was the first thing. And I think the second thing was just the number of searches. I guess I don't have a problem with OSBA doing 5 current searches with 3 FTEs and 1 part-time employee. And if their timeline is, if this is a timeline they're using, 4 of these aren't going to begin until August. We'll be done by then. So I'm sure they're prepping now, but they're not, they'll be into the heart of the interview process at some point, but probably past when we would need them. So I think those are the 2 things for me that stood out other than the comfort of the presentation.
Yeah, and as I said before, I kind of had him in a tie, and in some respects I lean toward ESC, but I did think the OSBA presentation, with a couple of exceptions, was more comprehensive, and that's a good example of a diversity response. For what it's worth, I have 2 friends who have a close association with ESC people. One is a board member in another district. They used ESC for the previous search of superintendent, and she was telling me it went extremely well. So but obviously your experience with Dr. Lucas is much more direct, but I just wanted to share that. And then the other individual knows people there, and that's one reason why my questions, I did want to know if Mr. McVeigh would be their manager, because I've heard nothing but just excellent commentary on his credentials.
Yeah, and he called me. He and I spoke twice, and he felt, frankly, awful. His behavior, literally, I think he's out of the country. So he felt bad he couldn't make it, but we had set a date, and we wanted to keep things moving.
Yeah,
It was
Of the
unfortunate.
essence.
It would have been interesting to see if the presentation would have been somewhat different as a result. That's
Fair.
the individual, for me, was the primary reason to lean more towards ESC originally, but I'm fine with the OSBA. I mean, they did do a good job for the treasurer's search process. So,
I think that OSBA just has more of a network out there than the ESC, and just for clarification purposes, the ESC represents Central Ohio, where the OSBA is the entire state. That being said, I just think that the tools that OSBA presented to us would bring in a larger pool, and I think that's what's important, a large, diverse pool of potential candidates.
And confidentiality, I think, is an issue for both firms, although I heard a little bit stronger for OSBA.
From OSBA,
On
yeah.
making sure that when appropriate, everything remains confidential, and when appropriate, everything gets disclosed.
Released, uh-huh.
It's now, I guess we just have to reinforce that when we set up the engagement.
Mhm.
So what I'm hearing, I guess without objection, we'll indicate and try to move into contract negotiations with OSBA.
assuming that his research discovers anything to the contrary, right? Just,
So no,
I think we selected before. We just said, okay, we're going to do.
I think
When we
did.
did the treasurer, we just
Yeah.
gave me the authority to do
I
that.
think
Yeah.
we did too, yeah, right. I'm confident that's the
Mhm.
case, but
Yeah.
it's good to check.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
It's going to be a busy spring.
Yes, it will be. All right.
But our next regular board meeting is.
April 9th.
April, okay.
Yeah. Which will be after, right, because one thing you do, Ohio ethics filings is what, April 15th?
Yes, how ethics filings are due April 15th.
Done.
As a
I'm
reminder.
in.
Did mine.
I haven't done mine yet.
I got the love letter last
You
year.
got the
so-
letter. Brian, write any more letters.
I made
You
it
can
through
do
the-
it online.
I know, I
Yeah.
did this one this time, but I made
Yeah.
it through the appeal process, so.
Yep.
And once you do it online, they send you email reminders.
Well,
Yes, they did, which I
yes, And
appreciate.
then everything is already
I
populated.
put it on every
basically.
calendar I owned as
Yeah.
well.
All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? None, please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Yes?
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes. Again, next meeting is April 9th. Thank you.
Thanks.